Volume 6, United Two Worlds, Chapter entitled Hare Krishna Fight. On the last scheduled evening of the Pandal, the Chief Minister of Maharashtra gave the introductory speech. Srila Prabhupada, however, did not attend. When the devotees asked to extend the Pandal another week, Prabhupada agreed, but said he would move to his now ready quarters at Hare Krishna land. Before leaving, Srila Prabhupada spoke with Mr. and Mrs. Mahadevia. Prabhupada had one of the devotees purchase a nice sari and presented it to Mrs. Mahadevia. I stayed with you and this is just my remembrance of thanks, so don't refuse. He gave a tape recorder to Mr. Mahadevia, a sari to Mahadevia's daughter, Preeti, and money to their servants. Mrs. Mahadevia was very pleased, but she protested, saying it was a traditional duty and a pleasure for them to receive Prabhupada in their home. Previously, Srila Prabhupada had playing the tape recorder in Mr. Mahadevi's presence, and Mr. Mahadevia had admired the sound reproduction. Now, when Srila Prabhupada gave him the tape recorder, he protested, "No, Prabhupada, I was not telling you that you should give me that. I was just telling you that it is a good piece." No, Prabhupada says, "This is for you, you must keep it." So Srila Prabhupada was showing how to reciprocate. I remember if it was in the Shishikontama Prashashki, Shyamas Sundar's book, Chasing Rhinos with the Swami, I think it's volume 2. He mentioned something about that tape recorder there, that devotee still has that as Prabhupada's Mahaprasad. Everything used by the pure devotee is considered tadiya or worshipable. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 14, entitled The Forest of Enjoyment, Text 10. Vachit, Sakrid, Avagata, Vishaya, Vaitatya, Swayam, Parabidyanena, Kvachit sakrit avagata vishaya Vaitacha swayam parabijanena Vibramsita smritis tayaiva marichi toya prayams tan eva bidavati Vibramsita smritis tayaiva Marichitoya prayamstan eva bidavati. Okay, just do word for word Kvachit. Sometimes Sakrit. Once Avagata Vishaya Vaitaptya. Becoming conscious of the uselessness of enjoying material sense gratification. Swayam, himself. Para abhidya nena, by the bodily concept of the self. Vibram Shita, destroyed. Smriti, whose remembrance. Taya, by that. Eva, certainly. Marichitoya, water in a mirage. Prayan, similar to. Tan, those sense objects. Eva, certainly. Abhidavati, runs after. Translation: the conditioned soul sometimes personally appreciates the futility of sense enjoyment in the material world, and he sometimes considers material enjoyment to be full of miseries. However, due to his strong bodily conception, his memory is destroyed, and again, he runs after material enjoyment, just as an animal runs after a mirage in the desert. Let's repeat: the conditioned soul sometimes personally appreciates the futility of sense enjoyment in the material world, and he sometimes considers material enjoyment to be full of miseries. However, due to his strong bodily conception, his memory is destroyed, and again, he runs after material enjoyment, just as an animal runs after a mirage in the desert. So Prabhupada's purport. The main disease in material life is the bodily conception. Being baffled again and again in material activity, the conditioned soul temporarily thinks of the futility of material enjoyment, but he again tries the same thing by the association of devotees. A person may become convinced of the material futility, but cannot give up his engagement, although he is very eager to return home back to Godhead. Under these circumstances, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is situated in everyone's heart, compassionately takes away all the material possessions of such a devotee, as stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 10.888. Yasyaham anugranami harishe taddanam shanai. Lord Krishna says that he takes everything away from the devotee whom he especially favors when that devotee is overly attached to material possessions. When everything is taken away, the devotee feels helpless and frustrated in society, friendship and love. He feels that his family does not care for him any longer, and he therefore completely surrenders unto the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. This is a special favour granted by the Lord to a devotee who cannot fully surrender to the Lord due to a strong bodily conception, as explained in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 2239. Ami Viga Ehe Marke Vishaya Keni Diva. The Lord understands the devotee who hesitates to engage in the Lord's service, not knowing whether he should again try to revive his material life. After repeated attempts and failures, he fully surrenders to the lotus feet of the Lord. The Lord then gives him his directions, and attaining happiness, forgets all material engagement. Om Gana Kamaranda Shya Ganjana Slakaya Chakshurmani Tamina Tasma Shigrave Namaha Pakam karoti vachalam pangamalangate grimya kripatamam vande shigrim dinatarnam. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. The conditioned soul sometimes personally appreciates the futility of sense enjoyment in the material world, and he sometimes considers material enjoyment to be full of miseries. However, due to his strong bodily conception, his memory is destroyed, and again he runs after material enjoyment just as an animal runs after a mirage in the desert. So the material world is set up in such a way that it's detrimental for spiritual life and conducive for forgetting Krishna. And therefore, Prabhupada gave this mantra or this motto, always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. So of everything which is there, which we do as our devotional service, in terms of hearing, chanting, remembering, taking prasadam, associating, reading books, all the rest of it, it's all there to help us remember Krishna. So whatever we can do to remember Krishna, then that's important. For example, at one time I didn't get much time for reading, and I was saying to Hari Sorry Prabhu that I didn't get much time to read, but I was listening to Prabhupada lectures, and he said that Prabhupada told him that hearing is also reading, because reading is hearing. So, not that we shouldn't read books and we should just listen to lectures because we're lazy. No, we should make that endeavour. But sometimes our situation may be such that we get an anxiety because we can't do our 1 hour or half hours reading every day. Then don't be an anxiety, just listen to a lecture. But it shouldn't interfere with our service, not that we're supposed to be doing something in an hour, it takes 5 hours because we're stopping to take notes and listen to the lecture and things. In that case, you'd be better to stop and read and then do your service with full attention. Devotional service, Prabhupada said, pure devotee is actually practical. It's not an airy-fairy thing. It's not that you keep on checking your feet to see if they're still touching the ground. Oh, I'm not a pure devotee yet. I'm not walking on air. It's not like that. So very interesting verse and purport here. So this process of remaining attached to the material world is given in the Bhagavad Gita. There's 2 verses. Does anybody know those 2 verses? Regarding contemplating objects of the senses, etc.
Chapter 2, text 62 and 63. Nayato Visayam Pumsa Samvestesu Pradate Samvat Sanjayate Kama Kama Krodati Jayate Krodat Bhavati Sammoha Sammoha Smiti Vibrama Smiti Brahmsat Buddhinasha Buddhinasha Pranasati.
That's the ones. So basically what's the English for this is that from contemplation of the sense objects comes attachment. So what happens? So we're contemplating some sense object, like for example, we might see a billboard and maybe it's a warm day and someone's just about to enjoy a drink of some cold beer or something like that. And you're thinking, oh, that could be so nice. But of course, as devotees, we don't drink beer. But one time we went to a festival in Hungary, and I took some devotees with me. There's 8 of us travelled in the motorhome, and we were going in and out the festival ground every day, and one devotee asked to be left behind at the temple that day. And I said, why is that? He says, oh, it's just too heavy for me. You know, I can't stand it. It's too much bombardment for the senses. I says, well, just stay with the devotees. He said, it's not that. He says, it's because he was actually quite attached to drinking alcohol. He says, and it was very warm weather. He says, just before you get into the festival area, there was a big billboard that showed you someone just about to drink some cool beer with all the condensation dripping off the bottle, etc. And so he says, I can't stand to see that poster one more time. in the festival ground where everybody's taking drugs and doing all sorts of stuff, then that wasn't his main concern. But it just shows you other devotees weren't even aware of the thing. So what we're very attached to, and other might think, oh, that's silly, just shut your eyes then. It's easy to say that with other people's attachments. We're always so renounced and detached from other people's attachments, but not so with ourselves. And this is something we have to be very careful of if we don't take devotees' attachments seriously. Well, of course, we don't take them seriously in the sense that we can see that, well, you could just give that up. But similarly, they could look at us and say to me, well, why don't you just give that up? You know, whatever's, you might not be attached to this, but you're attached to that. Attachment's the same thing, it's just a different object. You know. So sometimes we like to think of ourselves to be better than others because we're not attached in the way that they are. Prabhupada calls us wet stool, dry stool. Somebody likes wet stool, somebody likes dry stool. Oh, you can get the wet stool easy, that's terrible, that's disgusting. But I enjoy this dry stool. Very high class, sense enjoyment. And yeah, Prabhupada's got so much humour coming from Krishna. And this is our situation. We look at others and think, why are you being such an idiot? You know, you're suffering, and you just stop doing that and you'll not suffer. You stop making a fool of yourself. But that's the conditioning that person has. And then someone could look at us and say, why don't you just give that up? So we shouldn't be so callous in our association. We can understand that we're not really any different from each other. We're all in the material world because we're attached to the material world. We're not here because we're detached. We're not unless you're some kind of Shaktivesh avatar who's especially empowered. And if anybody says that, I'd be very doubtful. Because we're not seeing the symptoms there. And if anyone who thinks they are like that, then there's one person who was basically considered themselves liberated. And from that, it's a very dangerous platform because then you may think that everyone should listen to you and you don't have to listen to anyone else, and that was the situation. And one senior devotee said it's actually a very useless platform to make advancement from. Because it's just totally out of pride and out of disrespect for other devotees. The devotee, the more advanced you get, the more you think you're actually, everyone else is more advanced than you. You can see everyone else has actually been more qualified than yourself. This is the humility. If we don't have that feeling, we think that we're better than others, then you can be sure you've got a lot of pride. And this is also part of this process that keeps us in the material world. Pride comes before a fall. So we contemplate the objects of the senses, and then after that contemplation, what happens when you contemplate something for some period of time? Does it just go away? Do you have it? Yeah, become attached. Yeah, so that lust is intensification of the attachment. We must have it. First of all, think, oh, that's nice. And then I keep looking at it. And then we become attached. It's like we connect with that. Me and that are going to be one. This is going to make me happy. And then we become, okay, I've got to figure out a way to get this object. And attachment, when lust is frustrated, then it's like, okay, there's what's the thing they have? Black Friday. It should be called Lusty Friday. Heart is black. Because what happens is people are queuing up overnight to get some limited special offer on some limited product. And then they can see it, and they're first in the queue. They've been there for like 14 hours. They're camping outside the shop, and they're just out, and then they get in the door, and they're just about to get it, and the guy behind them is a faster runner, and he snatches it, and then they become angry. They start fighting over it. That was mine. It wasn't yours. You just thought it was yours. And this is us in the material world. We think something's mine when it breaks, or it goes missing, or someone else takes it, or it comes out of our control to maintain it any longer. Then we get upset. And it might be an object, it might be a position in life that someone's moved you out of your position, and then they're the top dog. and then you're just a dirty wee rascal, and now you're feeling, because you were so puffed up about it, now you're feeling so low. Happiness, distress, matra sparshastakantaya, become attached to happiness and distress. And then anger, we become angry. There's the sour grapes philosophy. Anybody not know the sour grapes philosophy? Everybody knows it, you don't know, okay. So there was a jackal in the jungle, and they seen these grapes hanging from a tree or from a vine. It was crawling over it, and he said, "Oh, those grapes look so nice." So he jumps up, tries to get them, and he's just about there, but he can't quite get it. So he takes a run, he jumps, and still can't get them. After jumping and jumping, he gets exhausted and tired and frustrated. He says, "The grapes are sour anyway, don't want them." So this can be us as well. We lose something, we can't hold on to it, and then we say, "That was rubbish anyway." I remember once, when I was a kid, there was a certain type of trousers that everybody wanted at a certain stage in life. I think we were about 11-year-old at the time, but these certain trousers, and they had to be a certain colour. And this guy, who was my neighbour, who was quite an envious guy actually, he kept on going on about how he was going to get these and blah, 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 blah. And then somehow or another, I got them before him. As soon as I had them on, and I thought he'd be pleased that I was getting the ones that he was gabbering on about. And he says, "Oh, they're rubbish. I'm getting the other colour." And because he was actually just so envious, he was so envious that he had to be the first to get those. And because someone else got them, then the grapes were sour. Don't want them. So this is, and we don't realise how futile this is, that we sabotage your own happiness because of this envy. And envy, Prabhupada said, envy is not even practical. To be envious of someone else is like someone has something. Now, as far as I understand, jealousy means that you want that same thing that that person has, but envy means that you want that thing that they have and them not to have it. So it's like somebody shows up in a nice new car and you're thinking, "I want that car and I don't want them to have it because they don't deserve it. I should have it. Or they shouldn't have that position. I should have it. I'm better than them." This is envy, and it's not practical because your karma might not allow it. So all you do is just suffer in your own misery because you've blown up out of proportion your own self-importance, or increased your demands, bodily and mental demands, unrealistically. So then after one becomes angry, then what happens? When we get angry, anyone here ever been angry in their life? Some of you haven't. Javit, Hoksha, John, you never been angry? Yeah, me too. And what happens? We get angry, right? And then later on, we regret it, don't we? Quite often we regret, think, "Oh, I shouldn't have said that. I just let myself go there, if I'd have just held my tongue, count till 10. And you're counting to 10, sometimes you count to 10, but you count so quick because you want to blurt it out anyway. Like, I'll count to 10 and then I'll say it. So sometimes we're just so determined to let our anger out. I'm going to speak my mind. I'm just going to speak. And people have this false sense of honesty where they think, "Oh, I just speak my mind." Well, that's okay. If everyone speaks their mind, then there'd be a lot of dead bodies around, wouldn't there? But we have to control the mind's demands. So in this name of being honest, then actually we can be very, very wicked. We can be very callous to others. A devotee can be honest, but first they be honest with themselves. It's the main thing, self-realization. So we're looking after how can we take out the anarthas from our own heart? How can we deal with our own situations? We've got plenty to deal with ourselves. We don't have to take on someone else's problems to deal with them. We can help each other in devotional service. That's devotee association. But we don't have to preoccupy ourselves when everyone else faults, because it's not, even if everyone else becomes perfect, then we still got ourselves to deal with. So then, after this anger, then what happens?
When one is angry, he loses memory and then intelligence as well.
Yeah. Bewilderment of memory, right? We forget ourselves. We become angry. We forget where we are. The prison house is full of people who have done something they regret simply because they forgot where they were. They forgot what they were doing. They forgot the damage they could have caused, like they damaged some property, or they killed someone, or they hurt someone, or they did something out of lust or out of anger. So bewilderment of memory. And then when that memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost, we cannot discriminate. Prabhupada also says that we should not give an angry person good advice, at least not when they're angry. So we must have that sense. If someone's angry, and we can all get like that from time to time, we're in the material world, we do experience this contemplation, attachment, lust, etc. So anger sometimes comes out, and we have to tolerate each other in that regard, because sometimes we're the one that needs to be tolerated too. So we should tolerate just as we expect to be, or we hope to be tolerated. So we may find ourselves in a situation where our intelligence has become bewildered. We cannot discriminate between right and wrong. So when someone is in that state, then it's not the thing to go and give them good advice. If someone's really upset and they're like really fuming and they may be punching the walls or whatever they happen to be doing, or kicking a cardboard box or whatever, you're not necessarily going to get through to them by just going and saying, "Calm down." Calm down, I'll give you calm down. That's the last thing you want to hear, isn't it? Yeah, or just chant Hare Krishna. So sometimes what we do is you just have to kind of keep out the road and just be there for that person when they do calm down. Because when the pot's on the boil, then you just have to make sure you don't add any more fuel to that boil so that it starts to simmer down a bit. So devotional service and devotee association is a very practical thing also. It's not that we're not associating as devotees unless we're all just floating around in a cloud of ecstasy. That can be there at times as well, like when we're in kirtan or we're having some nice sangha. But nice sangha also means that we're there to help each other in the good times and the bad times, because we're all in the hospital and we're getting we're administering the process, we're allowing ourselves to have the process administered to us. And it may be that at one point in time someone seems to be more troubled than another, and then they get through their cloud of difficulties and then they're in a better state of consciousness, and then someone else may need help. So this is the association of devotees. And because the living entity is, Srila Prabhupada explains it, material nature is our second nature. We identify with it so strongly that even though we know we're going to suffer, we identify with, like someone who smokes cigarettes, they know that every draw of the cigarette is actually causing more and more damage to them. But they identify with it so much and they feel like this is their friend, this is a part of them, how can they live without it? Or whatever else we may be attached to. We identify with it so strongly that we think we can't live without this. But what we don't realize is that we've actually replaced Krishna with this object. And Krishna is the reservoir of all pleasure. Therefore he's known as Rameti Krishna, the reservoir of all pleasure. And whatever little pleasure we get from some material thing is coming from Krishna and is obtainable by connection with Krishna and much more. But because we're so attached and we, through this procedure of contemplation objects of senses, attachment, lust, anger, bewilderment, memory, intelligence is lost, one falls down again into material pool, which means we just become completely materialistic again, and this just keeps on going, feeding the fire. As long as we keep feeding the fire will stay alight. But when we stop feeding the fire and we look elsewhere, then the fire will go out eventually. Of course, if you start it up again, that will start up again. Just like the analogy of the plugging the fan in. The fan is going as long as it's plugged into the source of energy. And some people say, oh, enjoy everything in moderation. Okay, so we'll just put the fan down to a lower speed, but the fan's still going. Isn't it? You can put it, oh yes, this is okay, we'll just take a little of that and a little of this. But the fan's still going. This is called mixed devotional service. We can have it on speed 1, speed 2, speed 3, mode of goodness, mode of passion, mode of ignorance. Mode of ignorance, if it's on speed 3 and it's just completely, if you can imagine your mind is like a peaceful basin of water. It's nice and calm, and then you just put this powerful fan on, and then it's all over the place. There's no peace there. It's not stable any longer. It's not still. So this is what we do to our mind when we completely throw all caution to the wind and try to just absorb 100% in the mind and the senses. Sometimes people think this is freedom because I've been holding back for so long now. I'm just going to give complete freedom to the mind and senses. And what does it do? All it does is plug the fan back in and crank the speed up. And then what happens? Then it creates so much bewilderment of the mind that we can't see what's right and wrong. We can't discriminate. We lose our sense of discrimination. Our intelligence becomes bewildered. And we do something which we regret, and then we have to kind of come to our senses again. So as long as we are plugged in to the modes of material nature, we're connected in some way or another to this material world, then the mind will always become, is always disturbed in one way or another. It may be disturbed in the mode of goodness, it may be disturbed in the mode of passion or ignorance, or a mixture of these. And whichever mixture is there, whatever is our particular flavour, then that is the species of life that we're preparing for the next life. Yam yam vapi smaram bhavam. So our mind, we are cultivating that according to our desires, our likes and dislikes, and then a suitable body is given the next time. So therefore, those who misuse the human form of life, they don't need the human form. They can just get a body, which is where they can just be sold out to their senses. That's what they want. So they're in the wrong body. So Krishna fulfills their desires. He's been fulfilling everyone's desires since time immemorial. It doesn't mean to say he approves of it. Shishikodan Taima Krishna Shikira. But when the living entity tries to be a devotee of Krishna in the material world, and he's striving, Manushyanam Sahasresu, out of many millions, one may endeavour to know Krishna, and out of many thousands of those, one may become actually a devotee. So when Krishna sees it, regardless of the struggles we're going through in this material world trying to be a devotee, then of course devotional service is joyfully performed. And if we're not joyfully performing it, then it means that we're still attached to the material world. The joyfully performed devotional service is not to be confused with just some kind of material happiness. Joyfully performed means it has to start with duty, that we're going to do it regardless of whether I feel like it, whether I don't feel like it. This is transcending. I listen to instructions. Someone says I did the service wrong. I don't defend. I say, how do I do it right? If you just defend, and it's like, let me stay in the material world. Defending means, let me stay in the material world. I just want to remain with my concept. I don't want to hear any higher concept. So this devotional service it's the descending process. And you think, oh, descending? I thought we were elevating ourselves. Why is it descending? Because the higher knowledge is descending to us. We're getting the mercy coming from the spiritual master and coming from Krishna. And if we take that higher knowledge, we will get elevated with it. Just like you have these science fiction movies where they have a flying saucer and then it beams down a shaft of light. And if you're standing under that light, then you get you get beamed up. But so that would be like us, the shaft of light in the form of the holy name, in the form of the instructions of the spiritual master and the devotees. That's there. If we just take shelter under that, then we'll get beamed up to the spiritual world. But if we keep dodging the beam, in terms of, we don't perform attentive chanting, we don't take care in our association with devotees, we don't hear instructions when it's there. We're thinking, that we're so puffed up that Krishna personally has to come and instruct us before we take it seriously. He's already personally instructed us in the Bhagavad Gita. That is for us. Arjuna didn't need it. Arjuna is Krishna's eternal associate. He didn't need that. Arjuna is so surrendered to Krishna that he'll accept to be put into illusion and distress so Krishna can speak Bhagavad Gita for us. This is Arjuna's compassion. It's not that he was some common bewildered spirit soul. So Krishna goes to great extents to give us his message. And we think, well, I'll not take it seriously because, I don't like the way that one wears their dhoti, or that one spoke to me not very nice 3.5 weeks ago. So we make some petty reason to stay in the material world. But the petty reason to stay in the material world is followed by very serious consequences that we have to stay in the material world. So do yourself a favour and check yourself before you wreck yourself. When the mind is resistant to Krishna consciousness, just say, hold on, let's just try it. Maybe the person's right. You're not going to find out if the person's right unless you try it. If we just keep on batting it back all the time, we'll never know. So Krishna consciousness is a science. The science of self-realization means that sometimes we have to realize things about ourselves which we don't like, because we all want to be thought of as a nice person. We all want to be liked. Everybody wants to love and be loved. And if someone doesn't like something about us, we don't like that, so we don't want to accept it. But in order to become that person who we really are, part of self-realization means that we have to realize what we're not. And if we're very intelligent, sometimes we think we're very intelligent because we're very expert at not actually taking the time to face up to who we are, or at least who we think we are. So we may be the artful dodger at dodging these transcendental instructions which are going to benefit us. But we will regret that. We'll look back and think, oh, why didn't I do it? I wasted so much time. I spoiled my devotional service because I didn't listen. This is the main thing, is to hear with rapt attention. If we don't have any attraction for hearing, then we have to pray to Krishna, I'm so fallen that I just can't be bothered with this. I don't have any attraction. And that is there in the Shikshastakam. Anyone remember that verse? That's Manina Kala. Tajtav Kibaran Mapi, the driver me to Shumti Hajin and Ragahar.
By Krishna Govinda, in his transcendental energy, thus fully transcendental energies. The Lord Abraham first rose for chanting these names. Lord ever kindness enables to easily approach your good deeds. But I am so unfortunate I have no
attraction from. So this is Lord Chaitanya's mercy. He's made these prayers so we can put ourselves in a position that he knows that we're first of all, Chetodarpan Marjanam. We have to accept that this is a cleansing process. We're in need of cleansing the heart. And then he goes on to say that being in a humble state of mind is actually a conducive state of mind for this process, for us to advance in this process of chanting. And then out of humility, he's thinking that out of kindness, you have allowed us to chant your holy names, but I'm so unfortunate I have no attraction for them. So as part of our progress, we realise that we don't have a great attraction for Krishna consciousness. We have more of an attraction for the material world. Therefore, what we were saying earlier on is Prabhupada refers to this material world as second nature. We identify with it so strongly that we think this is us, our likes and our dislikes, etc., our attachments, our friends, family, society, nation, all these things we identify with, they're misidentifications. We're nothing to do with any of these at all. Our real identification is Krishnera Tatasta Shakti, Krishna Das. That we're Tatasta Shakti, we're marginal potency, we can be influenced by Maya or Krishna. That's basically the freedom we have. And if we give our freedom to being influenced by Krishna consciousness, then we realize that actually we're eternal, Krishnera Nitya Das, eternally Krishna's servant, and we were actually never contaminated by this material world. It's just as the mirage in the desert is never actually there. In this material world, which we're chasing after, the satisfaction we're looking for, which we will never experience, it's actually within us already, and the Lord is within the heart, all just waiting for us to surrender. And whatever brings us to that point of surrender, then that's a blessing by Krishna. So sometimes here, as said in the purport, that when Krishna looks favourably upon the living entity, that they may be trying to be a devotee and they're having so much difficulty, then Krishna sometimes takes away that person's attachments and makes the person even like a reject. So we're all, to some degree or another, rejects of the material world, and that's a good thing. We've rejected it, or we've seen it as fit to be rejected, but we're still toying with the idea of how much can we reject at what time. And so we're in the process of rejecting the material world, and the more we connect with Krishna consciousness, the more we'll become like the rod, and the fire becomes like fire. And we have to stay in the fire, otherwise the rod goes cold, it becomes cold iron again. And by staying in the fire, in due course of time, because you see fire is one of the purifiers. If you have some raw materials, some iron ore, and you put it in fire, then the impurities, they get expelled due to the process of the heat. Similar with ourselves, if we expose ourselves to the practice of Krishna consciousness, and we keep endeavouring to be better and better, as Vaisheshika says, ABS, it doesn't mean automatic braking system. It does mean that, but it means automatically we brake on Maya. When Maya said we put the brakes on, we become so practiced that we don't even need to do it, the brakes will come on. It means always better service. So it's not like, oh, I'm doing my best. How do you know it's your best? Your eternal spirit's so brighter than 1,000 suns, and you're thinking that you're doing your best. We're selling ourselves short. Don't get upset if someone tells you, well, you can do better, because the person's got more faith in you than you have. That means that person should be listened to. You know, if everybody said to Prabhupada, oh, we're doing our best, the movement would never have left 26 2nd Avenue. But they didn't. They were, if you read some of the biographies of Prabhupada, and particularly you read Chasing Rhinos with the Swami, Shyamasundar talks about how the devotees were just so excited. It's like they thought nothing was impossible if they follow what Prabhupada said, and they were finding that because they had full faith, then nothing was impossible. And Prabhupada used to say, impossible is the word in a fool's dictionary. So of course, you might say, well, I'm a fool then. But you don't have to remain a fool. Of course, I'm speaking to myself here, not calling anyone else a fool. We should all be thinking that I am the greatest fool. Even at that, we should be careful. One devotee says to Prabhupada, I'm your most fallen disciple. And Prabhupada says, you're the most fallen nothing. He says, you're just insignificant. Because you could understand the guy's ego, the devotee's ego was such that he had to be the most something. And Prabhupada wouldn't let him have it. I'm not going to give you that. So intelligent. so expert. So we can see ourselves in this as we want to be something. It's like somebody gets a cold. Typically, I mean, thankfully, nobody here has had COVID. But typically, if someone catches a cold or the flu in the temple, then everybody gets it. And then after a week or two, then everybody gets it again sometimes. But sometimes we're like, oh, when I had the cold, I had it so bad. It was like this. And oh, that was nothing. I had it. It was like this. And we're competing to see who's the most miserable in the material world. Mm-hmm. Misery loves company. That's what they say, isn't it? So this is the material world. And we're here because we don't like it. We want something better. And there is something better. But it takes a bit of patience and a bit of suitable practice and detachment. We have to learn to detach. Detaching ourselves from the material world means we don't lose anything. It means that we actually just lose that which is going to cause us suffering. Therefore, Krishna is known as Hari, takes away. Takes away our miseries, takes away our misconceptions, takes away the source of our miseries. And there's one disciple of Prabhupada, extremely intelligent person. And Prabhupada wanted to teach him a lesson. So he sent him to cook. He was cooking for him anyway. He was his personal servant for a while. And he had to cook on this electric stove. And he had to get Prabhupada's lunch ready by a certain time because the fire digestion is there. And Prabhupada would just, whatever was ready, that's what you'd take at that time. If it wasn't ready, just bring what's ready. He was so regulated, Prabhupada. Because his time is so valuable, he's not got time to hang around waiting on some space case, 3 hours later showing up with some frisbee in the name of a chapati. So anyway, this devotee did turn up with some frisbees, and Prabhupada said, "What's this?" And he said, "Oh, that's your lunch." He said, "I can't cook on that cooker." He says, "Go and try again." So after a few goes, he said, "Oh, this cooker's useless, it's the cooker." So Prabhupada went down into the kitchen, he took some of the dough, and he rolled the chapati just with his hands, not in the rolling pin, put it on the thing, it puffed up, and he threw it in his face. He did this, and so you can just imagine Prabhupada chucked the chapati in your face. He did it 3 times, and he says, big brain can't even make a simple chapati. So this is we may be materially intelligent, but Prabhupada, and this devotee Prabhupada placed a lot of weight on his shoulders, and he did amazing things to make so many devotees, especially in Russia and Eastern Europe, and he went into a lot of danger. There's some very interesting stories with this devotee, actually. One time he was telling him, I think he had to go to Russia or something, what he had to do. Anyway, he really loved serving Prabhupada personally. And Prabhupada says, what's the point of having a big brain? Go and preach, just sitting around here all day. Now, Prabhupada was very appreciative of his personal service, and he did it perfectly. And many devotees get trained up under him how to serve Prabhupada. But he was thinking, this man's too valuable to be sitting around here serving me all day. Go and preach. Oh, but Prabhupada, I won't survive without you. And he said, just go and preach. So there was this, even to the point where he was arguing. No, he says, go and preach. No, I won't go. He says, get out of here. No. He says, I'm staying here. Now, he had that deep relationship. We can't do this, just whimsically. And so then Prabhupada says, well, I can't remember the exact thing he says, but I don't want you sitting here. He says, well, I'm not leaving, he says. So finally, I think he came back the next day, and the argument was continuing. And he says, well, I may as well go to China. He says, very good idea. Prabhupada held him to it. And then he's, what, you still here? Go. So then he did. Was that Tamal Krishna Maharaj? Yeah. Another one was Hare Krishna Maharaj. So both very strong leaders and did amazing service for the world and made thousands and thousands of devotees and millions of books distributed. But the spiritual master, he is our intelligence. So he said to these devotees, don't forget I'm your intelligence, because this is spiritual intelligence we're talking about. Spiritual intelligence means to discriminate between right and wrong, and not just morally, between what is right and wrong spiritually. What is the right thing to do? And if we don't have much of that, then we have to hear from those who have it. Therefore, we hear from Srila Prabhupada, we hear from our spiritual masters, we hear from others who are more advanced than ourselves. And therefore, we should never think that we're alone and that we're struggling on our own, because Krishna is always there in the form of other devotees, in the form of the Shastra, in the form of so many recordings which are there from Prabhupada and other spiritual masters. And even though we're still attached to the material world, and sometimes we think, oh, I'd rather be in a different situation, just accept that this is Krishna's mercy. He's seen that he doesn't want to leave you in the material world. You're ripe for picking. It's time. He's calling us. It's time for you to go back. It's your time. What about all these ones? What about that one? Never mind that. It's your time. So that's why we're here. That's why we've come to Krishna consciousness. And to learn that actually all this process of contemplating the senses, objects, becoming attached, intensifying that attachment to lust, becoming angry when our lust is dissatisfied, bewildered, memory becoming bewildered, what have I done? What mess have I made? Our intelligence being lost, and then the whole process of falling into material pool where it just goes on and on again, and we're just feeding that. So the time has come for us to give that up and go back to Godhead. Don't prolong or stay in the material world. Therefore, when we chant Hari Bol, we're chanting the name of the Lord, who's actually taking our material life away from us and giving us something much, much more valuable, which is eternal life full of bliss and full of knowledge. So let's not be a Vantasi sannyasi. We've renounced so much already to get where we are. Let's not go back to eating our own vomit. This is a situation. If someone takes something which is unpalatable, the best thing you can do is throw up. But then if you think, actually, this old joke, it was Billy Connolly, he said, no matter what you've eaten, whenever you throw up, there's always diced carrots in there. Even if you never had any in the last 6 months. Anyway, that's besides the point. But the point is that we give something up and then go back to it again. And we think, oh, I gave that up because it was so troublesome, and then, oh, let's go back again. So no matter how difficult it gets, don't go back to the material world. Just hold on to Krishna in the form of the holy name. Therefore, we have to be careful to chant Krishna's name, because this is what's going to save us from repeated birth and death, which would be most regrettable if we just gave up, or if we don't take full advantage of this. So taking full advantage means that we're always trying to improve our quality of service, improve our quality of being attentive to hearing, hearing the holy name, hearing instructions, and trying to figure out, how can I be a better devotee? How can I learn to serve the devotees, because this will please Krishna? Krishna's given me so much. How can I try to please him? And Krishna doesn't need anything from us. He already has everything. But what he does want is just to see how we utilize our minute freedom to surrender to him. And by pleasing him means pleasing his devotees. So this is what we all have to do. It's not like I sit here and I say that you have to please devotees, and I don't have to do it. I have to do it. I have to keep you guys pleased. I have to please seniors, juniors, everyone. We all have to please everybody. And pleasing each other doesn't mean to say that we just, because somebody wants a new pair of shoes, that because they don't like the ones they've got, that I've got to get them. You know, if the ones you're using are fine, then you're not getting a new pair of shoes. We're not wasting Krishna's Lakshmi. And ultimately what we're looking to do is please the spiritual master. And it says in the Shastra that the spiritual master is pleased when? Anybody?
Follow these instructions.
That's right. And what are those instructions?
Serve the devotees.
That's a good guess. But specifically, it says that spiritual master is pleased when the disciple follows the regulative principles. And these regulative principles don't just mean the 4 regs, but it means all the principles of devotional service, that we observe life as a devotee, and we start to identify more as a devotee and give up connection with the material world. So, and so sometimes we do appreciate how futile it is to try to enjoy this material world. But then because we're so, as I said earlier on, because we're so connected with this second nature of identifying with the material world, then we fall back into it again. But this is our second nature, it's not our first nature. Our first nature is eternal servant of Krishna. And this is, as devotees, what we're trying to cultivate, is how to revive that original nature, not the second nature, not the acquired nature, but our real nature. And this human form of life, at this point in time, is the best chance that we've ever had for doing that. So let's make the best of it. Any questions or comments?
Yes. A comment from Laura Prabhu. She says, I like to think Krishna is instructing us not only through the Bhagavad Gita, but through the devotees too.
Yeah, that's right. Krishna's instructed us through the Bhagavad Gita and through other devotees. And if we think less of devotees when they give some instruction which may be really beneficial for us, we won't take it seriously, because we write somebody off, or this one did this or did that, so I don't take them seriously. So no matter what they say, I don't listen to it. We're just shooting ourselves in the foot. It doesn't matter where it comes from. If it's helping us in devotional service, that's what we should take. So it's all up to us, each and every individual one of us. Our advancement in devotional service is entirely up to us. It's not up to anyone else. Okay, thank you.
There's another comment, Prabhu, from Laura. She says, Srila Prabhupada said, just hold on tightly to my dhoti and I will take you to Krishna.
Okay, so everybody over here to Prabhupada's asana and hold on to Prabhupada's dhoti. So, did everybody hear that? Yeah, Laura was saying, just hold on to my dhoti, not Laura's dhoti. Thanks, Laura, for reminding us that, Prabhupada's dhoti. So what did he mean by that? Do we all just want to get Prabhupada's Maha dhoti and we just wear it around our neck, or we're just going around holding on to it all day long?
You got the key from the back door. So he will go through the door and
So holding on to his dhoti means he's got the key to the back door. So the back door key is in the dhoti.
you got the key.
So we need to rummage through the dhoti and find the back door key, and then we get in through the conservatory, and then what? Go to the Vishnu lounge, onto the roof. So what does it mean? Hang on to my dhoti.
Follow his instructions.
Yeah, hang on to his instructions. And he's got the key to the back door because he knows Krishna personally. And in the material world, it doesn't matter how good you are in university, college, whatever, you may have the best marks ever, out of the best university ever, but if two people are going for the job, and the person who's going for the job happens to be friend of the boss, or they're the son of the boss's friend, who's getting the job? The one who's the friend, the one who knows. So this is us with Prabhupada. We know Prabhupada. To know Prabhupada, and for Prabhupada to say, yes, I know this one, means that we have to be following Prabhupada. Not that we just say, Jaya Prabhupada, and then we do all sorts of nonsense. We don't live our life according to what Prabhupada says. And then at the end we say, oh yeah, I'm full of Prabhupada. But yeah, but you didn't do anything what you said. So the instructions of Prabhupada, that's hanging on to his dhoti, and this key to the back door means that Prabhupada will vouch for us. This is the Guru Parampara, the spiritual master. They're actually saying to the Lord, here is this nice disciple, please accept him. And that's why he becomes pleased when we follow regulative principles. And when we become attentive chanters and we learn how to associate with the devotees in a Vaishnava manner, then the spiritual master is very pleased. And then he can recommend, please, Krishna, accept this one as part of your eternal entourage. Thank you.
I had a really beautiful realization the other day. I was feeling really emotional in Japa, just feeling really, well, just realizing like the level of how fallen, and feeling sick and tired of, things that come in like waves, material desires and things like this. And then the following day, I was meditating on like how we're all in the ocean of synchronicity, and this thing you were saying about like pleasing, what is it that we need to please when we see that somebody's agitated or suffering or we're experiencing something ourselves, to please those things that are of material nature. I realise it's like taking somebody's head, like we're all in the ocean, it's like taking somebody's head and holding it under the water. Actually like sabotaging their well-being instead of helping people up into the boat. Or, yeah.
I can see why it's not as
That's what you were saying.
What's that?
That's your meditation.
Prabhupada explains in this bhajan, Radha Krishna Bol 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 Re Sabai, that we're in this ocean of birth and death, and sometimes our head bobs up from the ocean, and we catch a breath and then we go down again. See, just as someone's head is put into the water, when under the water, they're suffering, and when the head comes up, we're gasping for air and we think this is enjoyment. He says, but this is not real enjoyment, this is just relief. So this is material enjoyment, it's just simply very, very temporary relief. And it's our freedom, we can stay above the water, we can go down, but we sabotage our own spiritual life by diving down again, thinking that there's still something here, there's still something in the material world. And therefore, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that when one is materially exhausted, then one can service to Krishna. After many, many births, what's that verse again? Bahunam janmanamanti, is that right? Mam prapajate, samahatma sadulabha, Vasudeva sarvamiti. After many, many births and deaths, one who's actually knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all that is, and such a great soul is very rare. Samahatma sadurlabha, that is a Mahatma, a great soul. So we're following the footsteps of the great souls, and what we forget is that we are all great souls in our original constitutional position, but right now we're not acting like that. But if we follow in their footsteps, then we will also get there by their mercy. Okay, is that all right? Can we finish it there? Let's go and give in the key. Shri Prabhupada ki, Kantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Shri Kuntai Mahaprasad ki, Thai Gaur Premanande, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki. Before the